Today I've got a bit of a special video for you. This is not your regular pro game of StarCraft 2. Well, we've got one human in this match. Spawning here in the bottom right hand corner of Catalyst, we have none other than Liquid Mana. However, his opponent is an artificial intelligence created by the Google DeepMind team. Now, this is an update that we were given yesterday on the DeepMind project. Apparently, the AI is called AlphaStar. In the past, the Google DeepMind team did take on other games, like, for example, Go, which eventually it did end up completing and mastering, I suppose. However, they tried taking on StarCraft 2, I think a couple years ago, and only just now have we gotten to the point where the AI is actually capable. What is crazy about this is that this is not just like a pre-programmed strategy. It's not an AI that is meant to just sort of attack move with a bunch of units across the map, like we see a lot of the AIs in StarCraft. This is a completely self-thought machine, which is the most impressive part. Now, prior to this game starting, they mentioned that AlphaStar, leading up to this match, had practiced the equivalent of about 200 years of Protoss versus Protoss on Catalyst LE specifically. And they wanted to test out how good their AI is currently when it comes to facing an actual top 10 Protoss in the world. So, what I want to show you today is two games of the AlphaStar AI that went up against a human. I personally expected, leading up to these games, that it would be, just an easy win for the humans, because the last update we received on this project was recently at BlizzCon, and at the time, the AI really was just, like, messing around. It was doing all kinds of weird things, like, for example, probe rushing, and it was trying to destroy its own structures, and it was, like, purposefully producing way too many probes, and then just sort of mining long distance, and it was doing all kinds of weird things, what you would expect a self-learning AI to do. However, since then, apparently, it has advanced a lot by analyzing a lot of pro games, apparently, and by playing against facets of itself. It sort of learned how to play StarCraft. And the thing is, a lot of the strategies that the AI was actually playing were very, very human-like. It had a couple different things that were a little confusing. Like, for example, right now, we see 19 probes here on minerals, while only, like, 2 in this gas geyser. That's something that you would expect an AI to do perfectly. So you would immediately think, right, as the next step, like, why is the AI overproducing probes on the first base? And it did that in every single game. Is there maybe something that a computer, while running the script a million times, knows that humans haven't quite figured out yet? There's a lot of really cool stuff happening. Now, apparently, AlphaStar, I guess in the past it may have ended up losing a game to the destructible plate right here. Pretty good stuff, but we'll see where this one is going to take us. Now, I did already see these games. I picked this one as well as another one in particular because of a really, really fun situation. So Liquid Mana manages to get the 2 adepts right here inside of the opponent's main base, and it will be able to get a couple of probes. Now, the fun fact is, after about 200 hours of playing Protoss versus, or 200 years rather, of playing Protoss versus Protoss non-stop, apparently, the strategy that AlphaStar decided to go for in this game is a proxy 4-gate. Which, I was watching this and I just thought it was hilarious. This is the strategy that every single person ended up playing in, like, I don't know, like 2010, 2011 PvP, just because it was the go-to build, and they had to, like, nerf this strategy. But apparently AlphaStar realized, you know what, if you're good enough, you can actually still get a ton of value out of it, and you may very well be able to go up against a pro gamer at this level. Well, Liquid Mana, he instead decided to go for the 1-base Stargate opener. All things considered, he should be in a pretty good spot right now. He does have a couple of shield batteries right here on the top of the ramp. However, obviously, AlphaStar is going to be able to continue piling up the pressure. The thing is, while there are a lot of Stalkers over here, this Oracle, usually in pro games, is capable of evening up the score. But already, remember, AlphaStar did overmake probes early on, and in general, it should be okay. Then again, though, that sentry was a little bit late there by Liquid Mana, and while eventually the force field does come down, and Immortal should be able to push all of this back, there's no denying that this is not that awful of a situation for AlphaStar to be in. This is actually a relatively common scenario at this level of play when it comes to facing pro gamers. Now here we go, a really aggressive move by AlphaStar. Rather than respecting the ramp, this was one of the very common things that we kept on seeing in all of the games. Rather than respecting the ramps it just sort of pushed up really aggressively, and somehow, some way, it made the calculated decision of moving into the main base here of the Protoss opponent. So AlphaStar completely blindsiding Mana here. I mean, usually an Immortal-based, army composition should be able to stop just the Stalker-based opener, but apparently AlphaStar figured out something that is gonna work out in its favor, and indeed, in this very first game, with a proxy 4-gate, we see AlphaStar obtaining the victory against the opponent, which I just thought, this is so silly, right? I just want to emphasize, Liquid Mana is one of the very best Protoss players in the world. Like, it's not like he's going up against a weak opponent, and there we go. Mana calls the GG. Alright, so I want to show you one more game of Protoss versus Protoss, and yes, we are once again on Catalyst. The reason why I want to show you this one is because it's probably the most impressive game that I've seen an AI play ever. This is a really sick match. I hope you will enjoy it as well. But anyways, for those of you curious, by the way, for now, the AI has been only playing Protoss versus Protoss and only Catalyst LE. Although the DeepMind team did mention that in the future, they do want it to be able to play all of the different matchups, all of the different races, as well as all of the different maps. Now, what makes this most impressive to me so far is not just the rate of improvement, okay? Like, there's been obvious improvements when it comes to this project over the last couple of months. However, what's most impressive to me is that when you think about, for example, an AI trying to master a game like Go. For those of you unfamiliar, by the way, Go it's a board game and it's really, really popular, but it's, I guess, the easiest game to compare it to is something like checkers or maybe chess. When you think about a game like that, right, you have full vision of the board at every single moment, and you have a limited amount of moves that you can make. Now, obviously, there's millions of outcomes, and there's a lot of different variety, but at the very least, it's calculable, right? A computer should be able to calculate roughly what's going on. However, in a game like StarCraft, you're not just dealing with limited amount of information. I mean, you have the fog of war, you don't know what your opponent is doing, but everything is happening in real time. There's obviously long-term strategy planning involved as well. And the fact that a computer can teach itself right now what these moves are going to be, it has so many implications for potential future developments as well. Obviously, right now we're talking about games, right? But imagine all of the potential things that can come out of this in like a couple years' time. It's absolutely ridiculous. Also, and this is something that I am personally very curious about as well, once it will be able to master Zerg, Terran, and Protoss on all of the different maps, and you can let a simulation run for, say, 1,000 years for each of the matchups, would it, technically speaking, figure out perfect strategies? Would it be able to come up with a strategy that is actually perfect? Does that mean that once that goal is achieved, that pro gamers are going to be able to run a simulation like that and figure out what the optimal strategies are going to be? Obviously, StarCraft 2, it's like a game of rock, paper, scissors, you know? Like, you have a lot of different outcomes, and there's not really a perfect strategy. And obviously, if you figure out one perfect strategy, that means that another strategy is going to be able to figure out what, you know, but you can calculate what the statistical best chances are going to be. And I'm really curious what the implications for this are going to be, not just in a long term, in like real life and all of the AI that can help out the world, but also just in like pro gaming in StarCraft. There's a lot of really cool things happening. For example, why is it doing this? There is no way that is ever going to be the correct move, unless Mana actually loses the probe. Okay, I didn't realize he actually lost the probe. That's because over here, there has been a little bit of aggression going on as well, but it's pretty cool. So, they did mention that there are... Ooh, the tactical recall there. They did mention that there are some limitations that they've made to the AI. For example, the AI cannot do things in a screen that it is not currently looking at. I believe I understand that correctly. It's a very complicated thing. Obviously, if an AI has infinite amounts of APM, it could immediately just start at the very beginning of the game, splitting its workers perfectly. And at that point, obviously, we're not talking so much anymore about man versus machine, but at that point, it's just like perfection going up against a human who can make errors, right? Like, that's just not really what we're looking for here. I guess we're trying to figure out what like the best thing is that you can do at a limited amount of actions per minute and a limited amount of screens and whatnot as well. Now, in this game, and that's the one thing that I was a little bit hesitant by the way, once again, we do see that Oracle opener here from Mana. But in this game, the AI does go up to like 1,500 actions per minute during one of the later game engagements. And I'm curious to see if that's maybe not a little bit too much. Let me know what your thoughts are on that down below in the comment section once it does happen, because it kind of feels like a human would never be able to recreate that, I suppose, right? We do want to have something, I think, that at the very least is human-like. Because obviously, if you have an AI with perfect micro, imagine the amount of value that they could get out of, for example, Marines, right? Marines would be utterly broken if you could micro absolutely perfectly. For obvious reasons, right? If you can like split them out and like you wave them around and they all have perfect stutter step, obviously they would be absolutely ridiculous, and a human can just simply not have that many actions per minute. So I'm really curious to see what the limitations exactly are, and I hope we get some more information on that as well in the future. But I'm excited to see where this whole thing is going to go. Now, anyways, let us go ahead and have a bit of a closer look right here at the game. Once again, we did see AlphaStar initially oversaturating the main base. It is now going to go for a Twilight Council, and it is once more focusing on Stalkers. This is one of the things that I found really cool as well. It focused heavily on Stalkers. For example, I don't think I saw it make a single sentry in any of the matches, although I may be mistaken there. But I guess if you run enough simulations, at some point you know that, you know, some units might just necessarily not be worth the cost. And it's ironic as well to see how much value you apparently can get out of Stalkers if you control them really well. It was very heavily focused on Stalkers, and I think Disruptors and whatnot later on as well. I don't know, although I don't know if that's going to be the case in this particular match too. In the meantime though, in the camp right here of the humans, we have Liquid Mana with a very orthodox playstyle, right? He's playing the strategies that we've been seeing out of pro gamers in PvP for a really long time. Curious, by the way, as well. One of the things that pro gamers pretty much always do in PvP, and I'm pretty sure like 9 out of the 10 best Protosses will be able to do this, or will be doing this in the majority of their PvPs. They pretty much all wall at the top of the ramp. And AlphaStar does not do that, which is really curious. Technically speaking, obviously, I think the idea behind that, and probably what, you know, AlphaStar is thinking about this, is that there's like travel distance. You don't want to block your own mining, but you don't want to like travel with your probe all the way over there, because technically that loses you like, you know, 5 to maybe 10 minerals or so. Obviously, it does mean, though, that you're a little bit more vulnerable in the early game. I wonder if that means that with perfect control, you should be able to keep your main base defended against everything or regardless. I'm also really curious, actually, how it would deal with cloaked units at this point in the game, right? Because if you look at this right now, AlphaStar has absolutely no detection here. So that maybe is one of the weaknesses. Now, it is scouting around, like no tomorrow. I do believe that they mentioned that it keeps track of previous games played as well. So I don't know exactly if that means that it keeps track of like all of the games it always played, or if it's keeping track of like the games that were played against the same opponent in the same series. So for example, I wonder if it remembers the game that it just played against Mana and the strategy that Mana played in that game. If that is the case though, so far obviously AlphaStar has seen that it's quite a heavy focus on Immortals. You would imagine it starts switching out of Stalkers here as well. However, turns out if you have good control, Stalkers are pretty good. Pretty good. So, AlphaStar backing up, trying to get a little bit of value right here is Mana with that Disruptor. You can see though, it calculated that perfectly. One of the Immortals is being target fired down, retargets immediately towards one of the sentries as well as that Disruptor. Disruptor now taken out of the equation, and you can see the amount of Stalkers now moving across the map. And this is where things get scary. Humans are gonna have a very hard time pulling something like this off. The Stasis Ward being a little bit of a nuisance, but nothing too crazy whatsoever. And you can see that Blink Stalker Micro is just ridiculously good so far. We do see the third Nexus coming up on the back of this as well, of AlphaStar. And the thing is, this looks surprisingly human. The Micro looks better than most humans would be able to pull off, but the strategies and the ideas behind certain moves look surprisingly human-like. There's some really mechanical plays that it does so every once in a while, and it definitely isn't perfect. But it's surprising to me how human it looks. Well, I just want to show you the actions per minute here for a little bit. Because it does start spiking up quite rapidly, and that's the only issue that I've got here a little while later into the game as well. That's the one thing I am a little bit concerned by. I wonder if maybe it should be limited to like maybe, I don't know, I would say like 700 actions per minute, which is like a realistic amount that a lot of pro gamers will get. But here we go. See? Like that micro there? Sure, that's possible if you're a Zerg player, like spamming corrosive bile. Right? That would obviously be something that a human could pull off because you have rapid fire and you know, you can spam one ability. What with like individual Blink Stalker micro going above 600 APM is really, really crazy. And I think it maxes here at some point at 1500, which is just, that's not something a human like, we can't press 30 buttons in a second, right? As much as we like to think we're really good. That's really difficult to pull off. Anyway, Stasis Ward once again being a nuisance. At the same time, a couple Dark Templar made their way across the map, but AlphaStar must have seen the little blur, giving it all the information that it needs. And it's just such efficient control here. Well, eventually, though, it does look like Stalkers will be forced back again as well. You do see that AlphaStar here has lost quite a lot of units, but on the back of this, it does have a third base now mining, and there's no such thing happening here for Liquid Mana. Liquid Mana, though, what he does have going for him at this point is a very heavy focus on Immortals. But this is where the cool part happens. This is where the thing happens that I was a little bit surprised by. So obviously, if you are really quick, you can micro 3 different engagements of Stalkers at the same time. However, it's very difficult to pull that off. Look at the amount of control here happening on all sides. If you are a human, just because you can only look at one screen at once, alright? And I think AlphaStar is probably capable of looking at pretty much every single thing that's going on at the exact same time. Just because it obviously can switch between things at like a really, really quick pace. Anyways, Liquid Mana looks like he wants to try and push forward right now. There is no third base here for our red Protoss player just yet. But the longer that this goes on, the more and more units will be produced right here by AlphaStar as well. Right now, it is splitting up its Stalkers here continuously. Even though it does not really know exactly where that army is located, it's trying to keep track of roughly what's going on. And you can see Stalkers moving in every single direction continuously, really guiding Mana to get into a rough position. There you go. Prioritizing the Disruptor, prioritizing that Warp Prism kill as well. And now a big fight will happen right here in the center of the map. Technically, Immortal Zealot would absolutely smash a Stalker-based opener, but the micro is happening at so many angles at once that the value that AlphaStar gets here is ridiculous. It's somehow, some way beating a unit composition that is technically superior with just pure Stalker. And it's just crazy how much value apparently, like, isn't it ironic though? I think it's ironic that after people focused on a heavy Stalker style in PvP for like 3 years and 4 gates being the gold standard, apparently after running the simulation for such a long time, AI has figured out that apparently indeed that is one of the very best ways of playing if your control is good enough. Offensive blink forward right there with part of the army, trying to split the AI right there of the Zealots back towards other targets as well, and going after those Immortals first and foremost. One Dark Templar trying to be a bit of a nuisance, but you can see AlphaStar absolutely smashing Immortal Archon Zealot with mostly just pure Stalker. That's not what humans do. That's not what humans do, but apparently if your control is good enough, the value you can get out of this is insane. And then, I just want you to pay attention right here, before I close out the video. In the top left-hand corner, AlphaStar's average APM was 324. That's not that crazy. And while it does have spikes that I think are maybe a little bit too high, there's no denying that it still has, at the very least, obtainable amounts of average actions per minute. It's not like it's sitting on 5,000 actions per minute and it's microing everything perfectly, because a computer should be able to do that, right? But it's actually looking at games and then teaching itself on how to play. I'm excited to see where this is going to go. Let me know what your predictions are. when it comes to the future and maybe any cool applications that I personally haven't thought of just yet, down below in the comment section of this video. If you're interested, I can definitely make future videos on more developments about this AI as well. So feel free to let me know about that as well. I have no idea how many people are actually interested in this, but there's no denying, and this is what I am personally really excited about. When AlphaGo, so the Go version, first blew up, and they managed to master that game, the amount of sales that were all of a sudden made on like Go playing boards was ridiculous. Like the interest in Go all of a sudden went through the roof. And I wonder what will happen here in StarCraft as well if an AI is perfectly capable of predicting what the game is going to look like. Are we going to have AI versus AI tournaments? Are we going to have like an AI that technically knows everything go up against someone else who's perfect? Will we be able to figure out finally which of the 3 StarCraft races is technically the best? I have no idea. There's so many cool things that could be an end result of this. So I definitely am interested in covering this in the future as well. But let me know down below in the comment section what your thoughts are. I'm really curious to hear them. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. If you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, the little bell icon as well, so you get notifications as soon as future videos go live. But do not forget to smile, alright? And I will see you once again in the next one.